A Fixed Number of Paths is episode 3 of season 1 in Blue Eye Samurai, and in no particular order we are going to try and answer the following questions. Who gets the best lines in episode 3? Are we really starting to see the beginning of redemption arcs? Is Akemi this annoying? What's that funny arrow logo on the episode title card for? And could Abijah Fowler be any more of a dick?
Oh yes, he can.
Episode 3 feels more upbeat, perhaps less weighty, and yet coincidentally darker in some areas thematically. And I'm glad the writers decided to give us a reprieve with a few comedic but much lighter moments. Bonds are forged and respect is hard earned. Whilst there is no big set battle and the legendary blue sword only gets drawn in true anger once this week, it does still make its presence known. We're going to do a quick recap of the episode's plot before we talk character, villains first, and then move through to themes, action analysis and responding to criticism. This will be about tonal shift and Taigen's actions. Before ranking this episode, and now that we've got 3, I'll give my opinion on where it fits so far in the series. As always, heavy spoilers from this point out, so buckle up.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Fixed Number of Paths opens with Mizu as an infant with 2 men debating whether to kill her or not. They get into a fight and one is killed. The other gives the child to a third person and tells them to go. Back in the current timeline, Taigen is contemplating whether to kill Mizu or not when Ringo arrives, not sure where his shirt is, and pushes Taigen away. Taigen tells Ringo about a shrine where they'll be safe. Delirious Mizu dreams about her childhood where she was locked away in a house, her mother telling her she couldn't leave or the bad men would come and take her away. We flip to the fortress and Fowler is apoplectic that all 4 Fangs are dead. He doesn't want a decade-long plan to free himself from the island to go awry, so he tells Heiji to deal with it personally.
Ceremony.
Ringo stitches Mizu up and gives her medicine. Once she's up, she finds Taigen writing a contract about their rematch. They settle on duelling in 3 days. A giant then arrives with an invitation for Mizu to join Heiji Shindo for tea. Despite Taigen's protest that it's a trap, and because he wants to kill her himself,
I need you alive. We have a contract, remember? No one gets to kill you but me.
he ends up going with them. We snap to the litter where Seki's failing miserably at getting Akemi to turn back. The litter bearers run away and they are stopped by a group of brigands. They lose everything and end up taking a really shitty ride in the back of a cart. Mizu and the others come across Mount Sumeru, and Taigen talks about his childhood in Kahama and how he was beaten by his father. When they make camp for the night, because our lovely boldy Taigen just can't help his pride,
I can kill you now.
Master, your stitches.
we get a face-off between Taigen and Mizu. Taigen goes all in goading Mizu about the hut and how they were scared of the monster. Honestly, Taigen, I was starting to like you, mate. And we see flashes of fire and Mizu's painful childhood when Taigen hits her in her injury spot. Also not big or clever, Taigen. She wins, but her stitches tear. The team reaches a crevice in between the mountains and the large man tells Mizu to go inside. She does and Taigen reluctantly follows, still certain that it's a trap. But at the end of the path, Shindo is indeed waiting for them with some tea. Akemi wakes up to find the cart driver took their money but led them the wrong way. He leaves them laughing and Akemi breaks down. Seki reveals he has enough money to get them home. He then reiterates that women have only a fixed number of paths they can follow, which is why he brought in the Shogun's men. Shocked, Akemi, who feels betrayed, sets off on her own. Seki then finds her inside the nearby tavern where she's pretending to be a prostitute. She entices a man named Goro to negotiate a contract for her in Mihoneseki. He lets her ride his horse on the way there. Seki looks worried as they leave. At the tea ceremony, Mizu says she wants to kill the white man he is in league with. Shindo reveals his name and Mizu explains she wants to kill the 3 white men who were in Japan when she was born. When he corrects her, she reveals she's already killed one of them. Shindo offers Mizu money, a lot of money, and an appointment as the new lord of the Sunday Han. In return, he'll need Mizu's right thumb as assurance she won't rise against them. He then shows them a box with 9 different thumbs. Yeah, that's some box. Then comes Shindo's second offer. He will help sneak Mizu into Fowler's impenetrable fortress so she can kill him. He tells Mizu to get inside a cask of sake, which will be taken to the castle. Shindo reveals he has 500 archers hidden in the mountains who will attack Mizu. When he tries to force her, she cuts off his hand.
Ow!
He drops the ribbon he's holding, inadvertently signalling the archers. All of a sudden, the sky is filled with arrows and Mizu and Taigen rush into the crevice. An arrow with a ribbon reaches the giant as well, and he goes up to Ringo, ready to knock him out. But clever old Ringo poisoned the soup he made earlier with a snowcap, in a very cute callback, and Ringo pushes him off the cliff. Mizu and Taigen rush through the mountain crevice, each taking a few hits. Just when they think everything is over, Ringo turns up with a horse and they both grab on. When they're far enough away, Taigen and Mizu reluctantly exchange compliments. Taigen hands Mizu the broken sword, saying it's rightfully hers. Taigen realises Mizu was never going to get in the barrel, but now she knows a way inside the castle. Just as Taigen is being all arrogant about their duel the next day, Mizu knocks him out. Meanwhile, back at the fortress, Shindo tells Fowler that the man he met is a demon and will definitely come for him.
Met is no man. A demon. Eyes empty. Eyes like yours. Nothing can stop him. He'll come.
Taigen then wakes up to find the broken sword. Along with it is a letter where Mizu promises him the jewel he deserves after she's finished her mission. Taigen is frustrated but gets nabbed. Back at the fortress, the poisoned snowcap soup surviving giant rolls up a cask from which we hear the sound of Taigen's struggles. Fowler wants to know everything about the demon and Shindo assures him that Taigen will spill the bee cake, so to speak. So let's see how our villainous villains are progressing with Heiji and Fowler. When Abijah is going postal at the news that the Four Fangs are dead, you can tell Heiji is completely unaffected, as this is normal behaviour for Fowler, and so he just nonchalantly moves his drink off the table so it doesn't spill. He treats commerce and tea as art, and during the bargaining with Mizu at the tea ceremony, he believes he has the upper hand. Overconfident in his mental faculties and arrogant about how he can fix the problem that is Mizu just by throwing money at it. However, he doesn't have the time. He sees an opportunity when Mizu reveals that she's killed one of the men already to rid himself of the obvious thorn in his side, which is Fowler. The displaying of the thumbs in the boxes, which is just wrong, is a power move. It's ritual humiliation for those willing to trade their right thumb for money, power and affluence. However, his confidence in his mental acuity is the reason he loses his arm. He thought he could blackmail our samurai into his terms and achieve his goals by having the 500 archers stationed on the cliffs. He clearly misjudges Mizu, and his comments at the end of the episode about Mizu having demon eyes, empty like Fowler's, just further proves that he has to now give her supernatural powers as pure copium for his failure. And I'm sure he's a tad displeased at losing an arm as well. His little boast about swords and art is well worth another listen to.
In my youth, I saw enough flawless swordsmen to know I'd never be one. I put my effort into other arts. Commerce. Tea. That kettle has been in the Shindo clan for 300 years.
Beautiful ironwork.
Fowler is being driven insane by his captivity in the fortress and existing in a culture which we know from last episode he despises. Whilst his rage is all-consuming during the Four Fangs beginning bit, he is all business at the end, wanting information about the demons so he can strategise.
Everything there is to know about your demon.
I only know his name. Mizu.
He's obviously a long-term thinker with his 10-year plan to control the shogunate. His delicate pinning of the flower onto Heiji's chest carries in it a sense of malice and level of suppressed violence that would be impossible to convey with an outright threat. I always get the impression he'd light a fire just to watch the world burn. He has another great little speech to Heiji in the pinning of the flower, which I know I've already played, but it's worth doing again.
So, if you might, my dear, dear friend, my trusted partner and clear equal, my right hand and both feet on land, fondest heart, spare a cup of concern towards our purpose, and do it your fucking self.
Often overlooked as the comic relief, we see a wonderful transition where he proves he is competent, smart and knowledgeable, and of course useful in a fixed set of paths. Ringo, because of his disability and personality, is often belittled as stupid, an invalid and therefore useless or a burden.
Can't be my apprentice. I mean, look at you, half limb to a half wit. But I'll certainly make a place for you in my kitchens.
We see him realise in a smart conversation with Taigen that although he may not be able to follow one of the four paths of the farmer, artisan, merchant or warrior to greatness, he can still be useful and help greatness.
I've actually seen what greatness looks like. And I know I can't touch greatness any more than I can swallow the sun. But I can help. I can help greatness.
Ringo has the knowledge and skills to stitch Mizu up, to heal her with his concoctions, to his situational read of the giant and feeding him what I like to call snowcap soup, to ultimately rescue both Mizu and Taigen from certain death, and having the perspicacity to understand how he could do that with the horse. Ringo is not stupid, he's just criminally ignored due to his disability. An all-out beautiful moment is the respect he earns in this episode with Mizu, where she finally thanks him for passing her a drink at the end of the episode.
Thank you.
This is the first time she shows gratitude, and you see the realisation on her face when he rescues them of exactly who and what Ringo is.
Useful.
He's incredibly resourceful and smart, just not in the traditional intelligence way. In terms of best lines, I think I've already played it, so let's move on. I was going to move on to Swordfather, but he doesn't feature in this episode.
Dare you? How dare you?
I quite dislike Akemi's character at this point in the show, and whilst I can sort of understand why she acts the way she does, I see her as entitled and privileged with none of the wisdom she needs to traverse the world. In this episode, we see her rejecting sound advice from Seki with a I know best attitude. But Akemi has been raised, at least in her world, as the centre of Seki's, and whilst her father may see her as a pretty bargaining chip, Seki does not. I think she learns and grows a little in this episode, but the harsh reality of life outside her closeted mansion is not taken on board, as she throws a tantrum and receives, a quite well deserved in my opinion, slap.
Those pretty feet run fast, but not fast enough. You're lucky I'm not a man. The other shoe, princess.
When the woman also steals the other shoe, I may have giggled. Her behaviour caused her to go without shoes. From the reaction to the slap, you can tell she has never had this treatment before from anyone. So her life, while cloistered, has not been violent. The learning of harsh realities, nearly losing everything, and then deciding that she'll make her own way in the world does show wits at least, but in this world, it could easily go so horribly wrong. I will give her credit for her game, but I don't know that I'd want to be spending that much time on the open road with that creep. Her final lines are her best, but I stand by the fact that she doesn't know the Lord will raise a hand to her.
My last employer tried to have me entertain a man I knew would raise a hand to me. He told me a woman has no choice but to accept her fate. But I know there's another path, one I choose for myself.
I'm still annoyed at no Master Eiji in this episode, but we do have Seki, and I did feel myself nodding away to his advice, including uttering the fixed number of paths line whilst trying to counsel Akemi in the litter.
There are only so many paths available to each man and each girl. Fight within your confines, not against them.
However, comparing stubborn spoiled Akemi with the pig again may not be the best idea. We also get some insight into his background and his proficiency, as it would appear he may have been a samurai or warrior in his past, as he is completely unafraid of the brigands. Whilst I found myself sympathising with his point of view in trying to keep Akemi safe and give her the best possible chance at happiness, I did feel he completely underestimates her resolve, and this is shown in his attitude, where he says,
Again and lost. Now we have to secure the next best available outcome, and that is in Edo, married to the shogun's son. I wouldn't have brought your father the match if I didn't think it was the best thing for you.
As he states already, she is no longer a child, but he still took away any semblance of choice or agency by taking the match to her father. If she really isn't a child, he should have discussed it with her once the match with Taigen fell through. He obviously cares very deeply for her, and it will be interesting to see where the story takes him. His best line is with the brigands.
Been some time since I killed a man. I wonder if I still remember how.
Prideful, arrogant, and with absolutely cracking lines comes Taigen.
I'm great!
We see a distinct shift in his character in this episode. We have gallows humour and understand what drives him and his loathsome behaviour towards Mizu when he lashes out. The not-so-subtle shift will be further discussed in the criticisms of the show later on. His inability to kill Mizu when she's defenceless, as there would be no honour in it, marks our perception of his morality and where he draws the lines. Firstly, he doesn't know Ringo is about, so no one would ever know. And second, this person has destroyed his future, as he sees it. His relationship with Mizu becomes more complicated as he starts to begrudgingly respect her, and the revelation of the abuse suffered by his father gives so much more context to him acting like an idiot when challenged.
My father lived and died by how many fish he caught in his net before sunrise. Enough fish and he could drink his fill. Not enough, he beat me instead.
We see where she beats him with the chopstick. He then lashes out because he does not want to feel powerless as he did when he was a child.
You know, the village kids used to scare each other with stories about you. The hut at the end of the woods where the monster boy lived with his whore mother.
The respect for Mizu that he gains throughout the Fixed Pass episode is clear to see, and I love that they gave him so many great lines.
What do you think you're doing? I'm the only one who gets to kill him. So if he's walking in to meet certain death, I'll be there to keep him and death from getting too friendly.
It gets more complicated when he is in the crevice, having had to work together to escape with Mizu.
We're trapped. 2, 3.
Stop counting seconds till we die. Hell with it. Hold me over your head and run. No reason for us both to die.
He's lost his position, his honour, his match, and he has come to respect Mizu's focus on her goal. He even softens to Ringo, telling him there's greatness in him after all. I love that they gave him so many great lines. My personal favourite?
Any path that leads me to Fowler is a good one.
That fever must have cooked your brain. That's not a cask, it's a coffin. He probably has a room full of barrels, stuffed with dead, shriveled, stupid enemies.
Anyone expecting a 10-minute review of our blue-eyed protagonist's motivations is going to be sorely disappointed. However, we do in this episode get a little growth for our revenge-crazy friend. I feel one of the saddest speeches she gives is in rejecting the first offer Shindo makes.
I refuse. I have no interest in money or power. I have no interest in being happy, only satisfied.
Which develops a greater understanding in the viewer of how much sorrow and pain she must have experienced due to her heritage. Please note her rubbing the rim of her teacup with her right thumb. We can see clearly how she's willing to give up just about anything to achieve her goal. Then there's her burgeoning It's Complicated Facebook relationship status with Taigen during the, let's call it a tumble in the snow. When Taigen offers himself as a sacrifice, you can clearly see the look on her face of surprise. This is followed by a slightly uncomfortable complimenting session.
Your shielding. That was...
Your timing. You're deeply skilled. The broken blade fits well in your hand.
Her respect is palpable, and for Taigen, a bit of a knockout when she leaves him the broken blade in a note. Mizu also comes to realisations about Ringo, and appearances being very deceiving in his heroic rescue. I do love that as well as her prowess as a warrior, we get to see her critical thinking skills and cleverness. She outsmarts Heiji, and it seems as if it was her plan all along.
You were never getting in that barrel.
Men like him like to talk so much they eventually tell you how to destroy them.
He told you how to get into the castle. How? What was it? The flower?
The cheap sake.
Although you still ache for all that she has to forego of the human experience for her to achieve satisfaction, which along with useful is my favourite line.
Interest in money or power. I have no interest in being happy, only satisfied.
This week, in a pleasant change, Fowler is the only person that murders anyone, although we do have 9 right thumbs in a box and Heiji will be struggling to get his own personal satisfaction for a while. Each frame and fight, roll in the snow, goes firmly to drive the character arcs, which I've spoken about at length. Each little tussle, even Snowcap Soup Giant being kicked off a cliff, demonstrates character and moves the story forward in a narrative way. One of the things I've loved most so far is that the action, the set pieces, it all shows you something about each of our characters, all the way through to Fowler's rage at the poor red shirt that gets it in the opening scenes. Brings a whole new meaning to Don't Shoot the Messenger, or should that be Don't Impale the Messenger's Head on a Chair. The action even complicated the relationship between Taigen and Mizu, as she realised there was an attraction there. Characters had to work together, offered to make sacrifices just to survive, and I thought it was brilliantly framed from a stylistic sense when Ringo literally rides off into the sunset as the hero of the hour. Well, it would seem that we get a brief reprieve this week from water, with the symbol on the title card being more say what you see than esoteric need to think about it. The strength of this episode comes from that, in fact. It's fairly straightforward, a thrill ride that keeps you guessing, including an oh bugger moment when the arrows start flying. Key themes in this episode were respect, friendship and overcoming adversity. Respect is earned on all sides, many of which I've already covered in character. Without gushing like a broken garden hose, you are shown the thematics through conversation on horses or at tea parties or in care for your injured master. And of course, the action. No one has to tell you what the themes are. You can see from every masterful shot. I loved the contrast between the burgeoning friendship between Ringo and Mizu and also Taigen and Mizu, and then the juxtaposition with Heiji wanting Fowler dead because they've had the most toxic relationship possible over the last 20 years. These parallels and yin and yang scenes just add to your understanding of these people. And you may wonder why I use the term people, but I think it was this episode in particular where I stopped viewing this as animation, a cartoon. I forgot I was watching 3D rendered models and brushstrokes choreograph live action that then somehow translated into art. The use of light is exquisite. I could do a 45-minute video just on its own, along with perspective and rotoscope, which you couldn't have done in traditional animation. I'm still picking things up. For example, our Master Eiji's blades are clouds. Fine, got that bit, did it in my last video. But I noticed today that his mark is also a windmill. Oh, and that the sword used to cut the flower is also one of Master Eiji's blades. You can tell from the clouds on the edge. I didn't swear. Well, I did a bit. But it's these thematics that make this show exceptional. Friendship and respect overcoming adversity. And what do I mean by overcoming adversity? Well, Ringo, he's been ignored, basically put upon his whole life. And he earns Mizu's respect by overcoming every adversity that's thrown at him. He literally rides off into the sunset as the hero of the hour. And if that's not a fantastic theme to end the show on, I don't know what is. Right. Let's get to debunking some criticism. You're probably thinking, Gee, why have you put a baby with blood on its face as the image? This show deals with some dark, dark themes. In just this episode alone, we've had child abuse, sex trafficking, murder, betrayal, albeit Fowler deserves it. If every episode was just serious conversations and emotive beats, it would not be as impactful as it is. You need the gallows humour and lightness to contrast with the dark of this scarlet riven blood-soaked world. Personally, I cope with humour, so I can see how that humour fits, even in the worst of times. This episode is a reprieve from episode 2, and trust me, you don't want to know about episode 4 yet. Added to this is the medium and mission of the creators. This is supposed to be thought-provoking but fun. I'm wondering about Michael Green, Jane Wu and Amber Noyazumi's mental health right now. Can someone ask if they're okay? But there again, I've also seen episode 5. You're not meant to be left with PTSD after every instalment. This is not a historical epic. This is a Japanese folktale inspired by westerns and video games, with a lot of scenes that make you think about them long after that beautiful artistry has faded from the screen. Bullying is a traumatic experience, and I understand that many people like their heroes and villains very one-dimensional. But I personally believe that everyone within reason is capable of redemption. Unless you're a paedophile, and then off into the wood chipper with you. That's my line. But forgiveness, friendship, growth, and making the best of a bad situation, I can get behind that. Taigen, in the abuse he received from an alcoholic father, is acting out. And he's learning, and he's growing, and he has an internal sense of honour and morality that he holds on to. Call it the samurai code, because for him to do anything else he ends up just like his father. All of us have done things in our lives that we are not proud of. And you know what we've learned from them? We've grown as people. Hopefully we do not repeat those mistakes. So please give Taigen a break and maybe look in the mirror. Okay, last but not least, ranking. So I give this a 9.5 out of 10 this week. Exquisite use of action, conversation and tension alongside, at times, jaw-droppingly beautiful art. Where does it fit? A Fixed Number of Pass is my favourite episode at this point, so it's number 1, with the first episode as number 2 and An Unexpected Element ranking 3rd. The first episode is my number 2 because the series was so different to anything else. If you've made it this far, thank you as always for watching. And that's all this videographer has time for, and I'll see you in the next one.